What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the Dr. Vibe Show. Also, President, CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. As always, I like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles and you're a solution for someone's problem. And you are at the home of Epic Conversations, the Dr. Vibe Show conversation. We are really excited and jacked to have this wonderful lady on this platform tonight. And before we go any further, I'd like to say welcome to Dante, Spirit Hunter, Durham Skyrider, Ahmed, and Leon. Thank you for stopping by. It's appreciated. Who is our new friend, Amy S. Hilliard? I'm just going to give the condensed background about Ms. Hilliard because we could go on forever and the time would all run out. So she's a thought leader. Yeah, she's a thought leader on the platforms of marketing, leadership, and entrepreneurship, and the business case for diversity. Ms. Hilliard is the principal of the Hilliard Group, a strategic consulting firm that has represented Fortune 500 companies and entrepreneurial businesses for over 20 years. The firm's clients have included Nielsen, IBM, American Express, HBO, the Art Institute of Chicago, the Ford Motor Company, PepsiCo, and others. With a unique background of senior corporate experience as an established entrepreneur, she's a former president of Fashion Fair Cosmetics, the largest cosmetics-focused company on women of color in the world. She was instrumental in strengthening the brand's equity in an increasingly competitive global marketplace. He's a native Detroiter, which is not too far from where I am in Toronto, and an author and an honors graduate of Howard University, where my dad went to school.
Right.
And and the Harvard Business School. Well, he didn't go there, but she also, prior to joining Fashion Fair, Ms. Hilliard was the founder, CEO of the Comfort Cake Company, makers of pound cake, the quote, "Pound cake so good it feels like a hug." The company commercialized Ms. Hilliard's own recipes for a variety of pound cakes and now produces a gourmet pound cake mix and sugarless sweetness, a patent-pending proprietary sugar substitute. Launched in 2001 and managed through brokers, the company gained national distribution and customers have included United Airlines, Chicago Public Schools, Walmart, Jewel, Safeway, 7-Eleven, the Home Shopping Network, and among others. And the Comfort Cake Company also achieved status as an approved supplier for McDonald's. I'm stopping there. We could go further. We are blessed and highly favored to have Amy Hilliard on our conversation tonight. And she's going to be sharing about Entrepreneurville, lessons learned from the real land of Oz. So Ms. Hilliard, thank you so much for taking time. Thank you for stopping by. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vibe. I'm just enjoying your show. I'm honored to be here and to share what I can with your listeners and your viewers tonight, because it's all about sharing. It's all about sharing those lessons learned, as I have ventured into entrepreneurship more than once. And I've also been back and forth, as you said, between entrepreneurship and corporate America.
Excellent. Well, I want to know a little bit of background about yourself. What were the days like in Detroit?
Well, it was great growing up in Detroit. Everyone, now when you look at Detroit and you hear stories about Detroit, that's not the Detroit that I grew up in. The spirit of Detroit is always there. It was a wonderful environment for entrepreneurship because that's what I decided to become an entrepreneur, because on my block, there were several Black entrepreneurs. There were people who owned beauty shops, barbershops, beauty supply stores. The pharmacist, Dr. and Mr. Grady. Mr. Grady had a pharmacy right across the street from our church, and he owned it. And so I said, oh, well, I can do that. The car industry was rolling when I was growing up. Motown was just right down the street from where I lived. So it was a very exciting time. And my parents were very instrumental in making sure that we saw all that the city had to offer and that we were very involved in the community. And that's how I grew up.
Were your parents at all entrepreneurs themselves?
Yes, they were, which is something that people don't realize often, that when you see it growing up, you kind of learn certain things through osmosis, but they weren't full-time entrepreneurs. My mother was a nurse, a licensed public nurse. Then she had 4 children, and then she went to college to get her degree, her bachelor's degree. So I saw that growing up. and she sold Tupperware out of her home. She had a co-op nursery school, which is how I went to nursery school, because she couldn't afford to just send us to nursery school. So she had the school in our home and hired a teacher, and everybody contributed. Tupperware, and then she also did cosmetics. She had Holiday Magic, which was a precursor to a Mary Kay business. So I saw my mother do all of these things. And my father, who really supported everything that my mom wanted to do, he also, and I didn't find this out until several years after he passed, when we were going through his paperwork, he actually incorporated himself back in the 60s to help with medical labs and getting them, he was a medical technician, and so he helped them to get different types of tests done, and he had established himself as an entrepreneur. So it is in my family background.
Now, you went to Howard.
Mm-hmm.
So how much did your parents stress the value of education?
How much didn't they stress it? It was not an option. It was not an option. I mean, my mother was a teacher after she got her degree, and my parents totally believed in education. They said that, you know, that's the way up, and to fulfill any goal that you have to get the training. And so I really loved school, but they also stressed that I needed to do absolutely my best and not expect anything less. So it was very, very important.
In those years of them stressing education, was there still that, was that the beginning of the entrepreneurial bug in you? Was that still in the back of your mind? Was it, or still focus on education?
Well, it's a bit of both, because education was something that was a given in our household. But I like to work and I like to make my own money. So at a very young age, I found things that I could do that could be generating money for me. For example, around the age of 12, I had a lock on babysitting in my neighborhood. I went to all my mother's friends. I said, if you need a babysitter, I'm your girl. I even printed up little sheets of paper with my number, my phone number on it. That was a precursor to my business card, but they were little sheets of paper. And I said, you know, if you need babysitting, call Amy. And every weekend all my weekends were full with babysitting jobs, because I knew how important it was to be trustworthy and to be able to get along with the kids. And so I did that at 12. Then I had part-time jobs in junior high school where I was a page at the library. I loved reading. It was a perfect fit. I could walk to the library, so I did that after school. I always had a part-time job from the age of 12. But then I decided that, you know, that was one way to do it. But then I decided I wanted to sell things. And so I used to take the rose petals out of my mother's rose garden that my father had planted, these beautiful rose bushes. And I used to take the petals, soak them in water, and make perfume and put them in little vials and sell them for 10 cents. My mother didn't like it because it wasn't great for her roses, but it was fun, and they encouraged me to do that. So always had entrepreneurship in the back of my mind.
We could be on for hours here, but I know what, I want you to get right to what you wanted to share about tonight. And audience, if you have any questions for Amy, you can type them in the comment section, or if you'd like to come on, just tell me you'd like to come on and we'll make it happen. Why did you want to share about this subject tonight and lessons from the land of Oz? I love that tagline. So why did you want to share about this tonight?
Well, Entrepreneurville is a place. You talk to people all the time who want to be entrepreneurs, but to go there, to really go there, to be an entrepreneur, it's a mindset, and you have to be willing to go to the land of Oz. I mean, because it is very different from when you have a paycheck every 2 weeks, when you are totally dependent upon yourself to bring in what you need to feed your family, to pay your employees. It's a land that's different from any other land. You find things that you go around the bend, you're on that yellow brick road looking to get to Oz, and you're on that yellow brick road, and just like in Oz, things pop up that you didn't expect. How you respond to them are the lessons learned. And so I wanted to share them because it's a build on my first book, which is called Tap Into Your Juice, How to Find Your Gifts, Lose Your Fears, and Build Your Dreams. And you can get that on iBooks, or you can go to my website, amyshilliard.com, and you can find a link there. You can find a link on Instagram at Amy S. Hilliard, and on Instagram to find a link to get my ebook, because when you look at the things that require you to tap into the juice you have, it gives you the power to walk that path through Oz and get to Entrepreneurville with your goals, your dreams intact. And I have had, you know, a good amount of success. I've had a good amount of challenges, and I wanted to share both sides of the story. Oftentimes when you talk to entrepreneurs or you read books about entrepreneurs and you see, you know, the great glory stories of, you know, the huge successes, but it wasn't always like that. And so I wanted to talk about the lessons learned from going to that place that you have to keep getting through in order to get to the goal.
Okay, and you know what? You can share, but there's already one question. What was your biggest challenge when you started your business? Now, I know you've had a number of different entrepreneurial ventures, but can you share some of the challenges you had starting some of those ventures?
Certainly. Let me talk about Comfort Cake, because it's 15 years old, my food business, and I still have it, as you mentioned. And when I wanted to do a business of my own, I had done well in corporate America. I'd launched millions of dollars of products for major companies like Gillette, like Pillsbury, like L'Oreal, and I wanted to launch something for myself. And the thing that I had that I made all the time was my pound cake. And so people kept loving it. They said, you know, that every bake sale, every dinner party, I would bring it. People kept saying, put that cake on the market. It's really good. And so I said, what? If one person says to do it, I'm going to do it. And I just made my mind up to do it, but I had to walk away from a 6-figure job in order to do it full time. At the time, though, even with my Harvard Business School degree, a business plan, when I went to the banks, nobody would give me money. They said, a pound cake company. Well, that's a cute idea. And I'm like, no, I was not trying to be cute. I was single by that time with 2 kids to put through college. I said, I'm not trying to be cute. I'm trying to run a business. And so the only way I could fund the business, because I had made up my mind to do it, was to sell the house that my family lived in.
What?
Yes. I went to my kids, who were 9 and 14 at the time, and I said, look, you guys have known that mom knows her pound cake, and they helped me to name it. My daughter, in fact, at 14, came up with the slogan, pound cake so good it feels like a hug. But I said, in order for mom to do this business, a bank's not going to give me a loan. We had this big house, big backyard, and it was when the real estate market was, you know, really, at the time, I saw a lot of equity. And I said, the only way I can do this, guys, is to sell the house. And I said, I won't do it if you don't want me to. And they said, no, mom, you go ahead and do it. They gave me their blessing. And that's how I funded my business. So,
wow.
Risk. And I was, you know, as I said, I had 2 kids. I was a single mom, and I was 48 years old when I did it. So it was not something that, you know, sometimes you do it when you're young and you can say, oh, I can just make it up. But I knew one thing. I knew I had faith. I knew I had the support of my family. And I said, what's the worst that can happen? If I had to go out and, you know, get a job in a restaurant, waiting tables, as long as I had my health, I could do that. So I didn't have that fear. And that was the first hurdle. Then after I got the business started, we wanted to get a big customer. So I went to a friend who worked at United Airlines. And I said, you know, one day I'd like to sell United Airlines, because I traveled all the time for business and I couldn't find any pound cake on a plane. So she got me an interview with the buyer, and he said, you know, one day maybe you'll do this. They called me and said, if you ever want to sell United Airlines in the next 2 years, you got to bring your samples in like in a month. I said, no problem, I will do it. I brought my samples in, and the next day they called and they said, we love them. We want to buy 550,000 of them.
How many?
550,000 slices was my first order from United Airlines for Comfort Cake. Now that sounds good, right? They made the samples and they were great, but and I went to contract business manufacturing. I never wanted to bake it myself. I knew because of my corporate training that I wanted to hire a plant to do it, a bakery. And the bakery that I hired to do the samples, they could not do the production. So in the middle of this big order, I had to go to United Airlines and say, you know what, I need a little more time. I had to fire the bakery that got me there. And then I had to hire a new bakery. And it was crazy. So one of the lessons learned is really network. know your network, and go to people who can help you, and do not be afraid for help. I went to another person in the food industry, Mark Schulman of Eli's Cheesecake. I don't know if you've heard of him, but Eli's Cheesecake is a really great business here in Chicago. And I said, Mark, I need your help. I need a new bakery. He said, call a friend of mine. He can help you. This friend was not in the phone book, but he had a huge bakery. And I went to him. I had that introduction, and I said, I need you to do this order for me for United. He said, we can do it. He treated me like a queen. This other bakery, the first bakery, made me wait sometimes for 2 hours for a meeting. Lesson learned there: know who respects your business potential and only work with them. So,
whoa, I like that. I like that.
Know who respects your potential, because everybody doesn't get your vision, but some people will, and those are the ones you go with. Well, this bakery was wonderful. We got our order done, and then 9/11 hit. And that bakery, which was great, had so much airline business that the owner called me. He said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but the bank's coming on Tuesday to seize our assets because they're not going to advance our loan. Now, I had spent $40,000 on pans that were at his bakery. I had all of my recipes and everything at his bakery. And talk about a challenge. I knew they were coming, the bank was coming to seize his assets Tuesday, probably about 11 o'clock. If I didn't get there before the bank, my assets would have been gone. So I had to call my team and say, we have 5 minutes for a pity party, and we're going to go then get our stuff. And that's what we did, and that kept us in business. But again, knowing who respects you, the purchasing manager of that bakery, he said, I'm going to call my friend. You can take your business over there so you can stay in business. It's really about getting to know people who will support you, and getting to know as many people within every step of your journey, because you never know where you're going to have to turn for help. So those were 2 challenges starting that business that we overcame. We're still in business today.
Excellent. Leon Henry from England has another question. How has business embraced your companies that you've owned? Or what is your thought about technology and business? Like for the Comfort Cake Company, as an example, what impact has technology had on it, and how are you using technology to go forward with the Comfort Cake Company?
Yeah, that's a great question, because when I first wrote the business plan 15 years ago, it was an internet-based business. I was going to sell Comfort Cake online. Well, 15 years ago, that was not something that a lot of people did. And so I developed a website. It was a great, beautiful website, but I was selling like 1 cake a week. And I'm like, I'm not going to be putting kids through college this way. So that's when I decided to transfer the business channel focus into retail and food service. But I always kept my website. So I always had the technology piece of the business that I never gave up. And that helped me to market the business. Now, fast forward to today, we were able to use technology and our learning for our website to go on Home Shopping Network. We were on Home Shopping Network 4 times. That's a totally technology-driven business. And we were able to morph there because we understood the e-commerce side of the equation. But today, now we are using social media, and we are letting the word out about our mix and where we're going to be when we get interviews and things of that nature, where you can find our products. And we have really looked at the business and said, now we want to go into licensing, which is again through using technology to let people know that you can find our product or you can license our product in different ways, to, again, marketing that to the business community in a way that I can send out all of our overviews electronically. I don't always have to go on sales calls. So I use technology a lot. I'm learning a lot more as we go along, but it's something that I'm fully embracing every day.
Excellent. Leon and Ahmed, you are here. If you want to come on and ask any questions, please join the conversation. I want to roll back in regards to the situations you outlined to us, how a certain gentleman led you to another baker, etc. I always want to know, especially with entrepreneurs like yourself, the importance of relationships.
OMG. That is one of the most, if not the most important thing that has kept me in business and has allowed me to succeed in business, in corporate America, and in life. I totally believe in relationship building and relationship nurturing, because people are people. They like to do business with people that they like, and you have to be willing to help other people even before you need help, because there's going to come a day when you're going to need it. And if you only show up when you need help and you're not giving help, that's not a win-win. So I believe that it is critical to really respect people who are in your sphere. And the relationship building comes not only with people who are, peers, other entrepreneurs, or your customers, it's the people on your team. Now, this is a lesson that was really important to me, actually, in corporate America. I was the product manager on White Rain hairspray at Gillette, and this was in the 80s. And I kept getting letters, talk about technology, I kept getting letters every week from people who wanted me to bring back White Rain shampoo. I was on the hairspray. And I would bring these letters to the vice president of marketing and the president. I'm saying, I need to bring back White Rain shampoo. And they're like, we don't have it in the budget. But I'm saying, but I'm getting 10 letters a week. That's equivalent to getting like 1,000 likes on Facebook, right? Because if 10 people are actually writing, there's thousands of people who are thinking about it. So I went to the managers again. I said, listen, I really think this is an opportunity. They got tired of me asking. They said, finally, Amy, you can do it, but you can't increase your budget, no more money, and you have 6 months to get it on the marketplace. I'm like, great, green light, I'm a go. Then I went back to the team, and I'm like, guess what? We can launch White Rain shampoo. But guess what else? I don't know how to do it, but you do. And I went and I called this meeting. This was with the people from manufacturing, from advertising, from R&D, from sales, all the people who would launch a new product. And I said, your expertise is what I need, and I want to listen to you. That's building a relationship of respect. And we got that out in 6 months. That brand was 25 million when I started. It was 100 million when I left.
Wow. I know Leon has another question, but I'll parking lot that for a moment. Ahmed Hazel has joined the conversation, and Ahmed, welcome to the conversation. Please ask Amy what you would like to ask.
Thank you, Ms. Hilliard. It's honor and respect to you, and your challenges that you faced is very inspiring. My business is, I'm in mortgage-backed securities, and we are cleaning up the toxic assets that was left behind by the 2008 mortgage crash. So we deal in a lot of high stakes investments.
Okay.
What the question that I want to ask you is, during your challenges, what type of mindset training or exercises or development did you do to overcome some of those early challenges in your business?
Well, hi, Ahmed. It's so good to meet you, and thank you for your question. It's a great one, and boy, you're in a very challenging business. I mean, really trying to come back from what we all went through. I think that one of the keys is, and you hit on it, it's the mindset muscle. That's another entrepreneurial lessons learned from the land of Oz. We have our mind, and we've got to exercise the muscle of our mind so that we can overcome challenges, because it's all here. Everything is mental. I just saw the movie Hands of Stone. I don't know if you've seen it, about Roberto Duran and how he was trained to fight. And his trainer kept telling him, it's here. It is here. You can go overcome anything if you have it up here. And I've seen this work myself. This is one of the things that I talk about in Tap Into Your Juice as well. It's about making sure that you are doing what you can to make sure you are mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically prepared to do battle, basically, to fight the good fight. Because if you are, you can pretty much overcome anything if you put your mind to it. But the ability to make that shift, sometimes it's hard. It's not always easy for me. But I figure if I can do it, and I force myself to do it, and there are techniques that are proven that can jumpstart your path toward progress, and there are also things that you can do that can really stop your progress. It's all in what you think. And so I do meditate. I pray every morning, first thing in the morning, every morning. I exercise 4 times a week at least, because those things can jumpstart your thinking. I read a lot of positivity, and I try very much to stay engaged with positive people, like you and Dr. Vibe.
Yeah. Dr. Vibe is wonderful because he's one of those people that if you go to him and ask him for help with something, he's always right on it. He's always making great connections. So, Dr. Vibe, honor and respect to you, as well as to you, Ms. Hilliard. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Do you have any other questions for Ms. Hilliard?
No, that's it. Because I'll take over the whole show.
Hey, you know what? You can stay. Oh, he jumped off. Okay, no problem. Ms. Hilliard and other. Thank you, Brian, for stopping by. Thank you, Dr. Will Speaks. If you have any questions, S. Rashim, thank you so much. If any of you have any questions about entrepreneurship or would like Amy to share any of her ups or her downs about her journey through the land to the land of Oz, she's available. I just want to ask this conversation piece. Are you seeing, and I know probably the answer to this, but are you seeing more and more African Americans getting involved in the world of entrepreneurship? And if you are, what words of wisdom do you have for them? You've already given some, but first piece, are you seeing more and more African Americans getting involved, and is that making you excited?
Well, it is, because that's one of the fastest growing groups of entrepreneurship, especially African American women. So there are a lot of women, African American women, who are starting businesses. A lot of African Americans are starting businesses. And think about it, it's always been in our DNA. We have run civilizations. And so it is something that we can do, and we need to think about it. And the word of advice that I would give is to think about what kind of business do you want to be in for the life that you want. Because they're lifestyle entrepreneurship businesses. You can have it on the side, or you can have a scalable business, which is a business that will grow to a certain degree and grow to a larger scale. Depending upon the type of business and the category of business that you're in, there are certain businesses that you must scale in order to survive. Food is one of them. The food industry is one of the most challenging categories to be in without scaling. If and so I had to come into a situation where I had to say, okay, do I want to have my own food plant? Because I had reached a point where through contract manufacturing, I could get my pricing to a certain degree when I was making the cakes and having them made for me. But when I'm selling to Walmart, when I'm selling to the Chicago Public Schools, the big distributors, those are things that you have to have the right pricing in order to compete. And so I said, I have to think of a different way to scale my business. And I didn't, for my lifestyle, want to own a plant. That's why I have looked toward using my business differently. And I think that African Americans need to think about doing their businesses differently, because there's so many options. We don't always have to own 100% of our business. We can license our business. And one of the things that is a great example of licensing is the African American who came up with Super Soaker. You know, that water gun?
Yep.
He licensed that to Hasbro for millions of dollars. And he gets paid every time they sell one. And I'm saying, well, I can get paid every time somebody sells Comfort Cake, and I don't have to make it. But you can pay me to use my name and my recipes. So I want African Americans to think about different ways to be an entrepreneur that work for you, and know your goals and objectives first.
Now, in the case, this always brings up an interesting conversation piece to me. What about ownership? Because you mentioned there, you can sell it, etc. Is ownership an important piece to you? Because one of the common conversation pieces that comes up on many of my conversations is African Americans or Blacks don't own anything.
Well, we don't own enough, and sometimes we try to own too much. Here's what I mean.
Okay.
Bill Gates, he doesn't own 100% of it. He owns about 12%, and he goes to the bank happy every day. Now, we can think about owning 100% of a business and keeping it very close to the vest and not wanting to share your equity with the people who can help you to grow. Or you can say, I'd rather partner. A good partner can be the best thing for your business in terms of giving you a balance to your skill set. But in order to motivate that partner to take it to the wall, to get it past the finish line, sometimes you have to give them equity in order to do it so that they feel ownership as well. I love ownership. I love being able to say I'm an entrepreneur and I own this business, but I don't have to own 100% of it to say that.
Good point. Excellent point. Getting back to one of the conversations pieces that Leon Henry has brought up, how do you deal with your competitors?
Well, you deal with them in a way that says, I'm as good as or better than you. I have something that you don't have, which is my recipe, my product, my story. And I went up against with Comfort Cake, as an example, my competitor, Sara Lee. That's what I grew up on. That's what I ate, a lot of pound cake. I ate Sara Lee all the time. And people said to me, how can you compete against Sara Lee? Aren't you afraid of Sara Lee? And I'm like, no, because Sara Lee doesn't make Comfort Cake. I make Comfort Cake. Now, I protected my name, Comfort Cake, and I suggest that if you want to compete, you have to think like the big boys, and you have to present yourself like the big boys and protect yourself like the big boys. And then you can compete with them, because niche marketing and smaller entrepreneurs can do things that the big guys can't. Pound cake made from scratch, which is what Comfort Cake is something that Sara Lee doesn't do, because their whole infrastructure is built on millions and millions and millions going down their manufacturing pipeline. If they made Sara Lee from scratch every time, they would not be able to sustain profit margins. But I built my business on doing it from scratch, Southern style pound cake, and finding a way to commercialize my recipe so that I could do the kind of volume that would give me enough business that I'd be happy with. And then I chose the distribution channels that could grow my business with what I needed for volume. So I'm not scared of competition at all, but you find a way to compete against them, but don't be afraid.
Great answers. And there are a lot of people here in the room. Fire away with the questions. You know what? As I like to say, Amy is dropping knowledge bombs. She's dropping knowledge bombs tonight. Now, and boom, exactly, boom. And it's interesting because one of the frequent guests on my conversations, a lady named V. Cherie Williams, and she, and actually she saw you speak. Is it San Diego? Last fall, you were somewhere in California doing a presentation.
Oh, yes, I was in near San Francisco.
Yes, and she mentioned that that she saw you and you're very inspirational and a great mentor to be if the day ever comes. Talk about Blacks getting themselves involved entrepreneur-wise in the food industry, because that's part of your niche. What sort of challenges do you see or that you overcame? You've shared some already, but what other challenges do you see Blacks or people wanting to get involved in the food industry who are entrepreneurs?
As you look at the food industry, you have to be able to answer the question of what kind of entrepreneur in food do I want to be? Some people, and I have nothing against them at all, get great satisfaction with making their product and selling them at a fair or a farmer's market, something like that in terms of their distribution. I come up through corporate America, so I'm used to doing it in large numbers. And when I went into the food industry, I wanted to do it from a wholesale perspective. After I tried the internet, and that didn't work for me because it wasn't the volume. So once you choose your channel of distribution, it's going to be your focus. You have to build your business around the requirements of that channel, not just the fact that your product tastes good. And that's in food something that people need to understand. You can have the best tasting pound cake, brownie, salad dressing, barbecue sauce. It can taste off the chain, but if you don't know how to get it on the shelf, it's not going to matter. And so you have to be sure you know how to get it on the shelf if that is your goal.
You mentioned something very interesting. When you're an entrepreneur, how do you react to something when it doesn't work?
You do what I call employ bounce back ability. And here's an example. When we went to retail, I was selling my round cakes, my bundt cakes, to Jewel, our biggest customer here in Chicago, and they were doing okay, but they weren't setting the world on fire because there was a whole carb craze, low carb craze that had come in, and so people were like, I don't want a whole big cake all at once, and we were about to get discontinued, and I employed this bounce back ability instead of just going along and saying, okay, sorry, we're gonna leave now because you don't want to have us anymore. I went to the buyer and I said, can I just have an exploratory conversation about what it is you need next? The word exploratory takes us off of me trying to say, keep me. I said, let me explore with you what you need. He said, you know what we need? We need individual slices. We need individual servings because that's where people are going. And I said, I can do that. I've been talking to my bakery about what other things we could do. I could do slices. And we tested slices and we stayed in because we shifted. It's called doing a strategic pivot. And we pivoted from our big cakes into slices. And that kept us in business. You've got to be able to read the tea leaves and understand in food or anything else, tastes change, trends change, and you've got to be able to pivot. Now, we're pivoting again because people are very concerned about their health. And so I'm I have a dessert and I'm like, how can I get into or really help fortify this real trend? Because I'm a healthy person and I like being healthy, about products that taste good, that are still sweet, but don't have a lot of sugar. Now I developed with because my dad was a diabetic, he would eat my comfort cake at Thanksgiving, big chunks of it. I'd come down in the morning, big chunks would be gone. He's sitting there with a coffee cup and big grin on his face. And I'm like, Daddy, you can't eat all this sugar. You are diabetic. And he said, well, make a cake that I can eat. And I said, yes, sir, because it wasn't a request. And so I had to come up with an ingredient that acted like sugar, but did not have a bad taste. And I needed it. I said, all I want is something that I can take 25 pounds out for the plant of sugar and put 25 pounds of this stuff. I didn't want to change my recipe. It's my little Post-it note. We developed that, and that's what we have a patent pending on. It is something that we really want to employ and to use, because I think that it's something that people who are health conscious but still have a sweet tooth, you'll be able to really enjoy it when I'm going to do something big with it. So you've got to be able to make that strategic pivot when your trends change, and be not afraid when you have a challenge or when somebody's going to say no to you, to explore what they need. You will find many answers that way.
Excellent. Excellent. Again, dropping knowledge bombs. Amy, dropping knowledge bombs. I'm telling you, I'm all over this. Is great. And again, the viewers who are on, Brian, Leon, Ahmed, Dr. Will Speaks, if you have any questions, keep them firing. And also, if you want to come on, don't be afraid. Ahmed, if you want to come back, if you got some more things you want to ask, you know how I do my conversations. I steer the ship. My friends drive the ship. So Amy, let's ask here. So this industry, the entrepreneur industry, from the time that you've got in to now, do you feel it's easier to become successful now than when you started your entrepreneurial run, or more difficult?
I really don't think it's going to, it's an either or situation. It really depends on your personal situation and what it is that you're trying to do. What do you have to invest with? I think that one of the challenges that's still pretty much the same is the raising capital. It's still difficult to raise the capital. But what you have now that you didn't have 15 years ago is crowdfunding. There was no Kickstarter when I started Comfort Cake. But you have that now, so it's easier to gain access to more people who can help to fund your business now, which is a good thing. But I think that as an entrepreneur, one of the Entrepreneurville lessons learned is that you really do have to understand your own risk tolerance. And now, in today's economy, as Ahmad was saying, we come through a horrible recession. And so we're still trying to, make people to come off of that in their personal finances. And so you've got to really make sure that what you can afford to risk is something that you are willing to do, and that your plan B if it doesn't work. Because today the stakes are very high in terms of what it is that you might have to invest depending upon your business. And you have to be willing to know what your plan B is in case the business doesn't work out, because businesses don't work out all the time, but that's okay. And that's the other piece, that you have to be willing to fail. Because if you're not willing to try something hard and not have it work, you may not find the open door or that real yellow brick road that looked like a detour. It's not a detour. It is actually just a bend in the yellow brick road on that journey to Entrepreneurville success. And you have to be willing to think about that, whether it was 15, 20 years ago or now. There's certain tenets that don't change.
Wow. Okay, we have someone on here that's being a little bit out of order, so I'll make sure that they can come off the conversation. But let's keep on going here.
Okay.
With your journey, compare what you're seeing in entrepreneur world versus the corporate world. Is it like, what made you jump out of the corporate world? We never had a chance to speak about that.
Well, I was going to bring that up because I think that for me, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so when I went to corporate America, after I graduated from Harvard Business School, in the back of my mind, I said, I want to prepare myself to be an entrepreneur. Therefore, I want to work for the best companies out there so that I can get the training that I would need down the road. And that was my path. But always, because remember back in my growing up, I always had an entrepreneurial mindset. What I found in corporate America, and that was back then, and is very true today, you've got to have an entrepreneurial mindset, whether you're in corporate America or not. Because if you don't think like an entrepreneur, you won't know or welcome the need to innovate. Entrepreneurs have to find creative ways to make something out of nothing. And that's all innovation is. And you've got to have that mindset. That's how I was successful in corporate America. I found a way. I created stuff that wasn't there before because I liked to do it. And so when I went back and forth into corporate America, back into entrepreneurship, for example, it was to do things differently, to learn new things, try new industries. And I got a lot of insight from my corporate jobs. I made a lot of great contacts there. And I learned how to apply what I learned in corporate America to my own business. So I think that if there are those of you out there in corporate America who want to be an entrepreneur, that's great. Learn everything you can. And then make sure you're taking notes, that you're studying and seeing how it's done when it's got a big budget, so you can learn the things that were successful that you can employ when you don't have a big budget, but certain things still work very well. I spent time at major corporations like Gillette, L'Oreal, Pillsbury, Fashion Fair Cosmetics was going there was very interesting because I went there after starting Comfort Cake. I took basically a sabbatical from my food business to do that. But I did that because Mr. and Mrs. Johnson were entrepreneurs way ahead of their time. And I admired them so. I was fortunate enough to be in the audience at the Halston Fashion Show when in 1974, Mrs. Eunice Johnson was in the show too. We were the only two blacks in the show. And so if the show hadn't started, I'm sitting in the front row because I was the assistant buyer from Bloomingdale's. I walked up to the show before my buyer. She said, save our seats because I'll be late. Well, they told me, they took one look at me and they said, oh, deliveries are in the back. I said, what? I'm like, no, I'm from Bloomingdale's. I believe my seat is in the front. So I'm sitting in the front. Mrs. Johnson comes over to me and says, who are you? I don't know you. You're sitting in the front of the show. And I said, well, Mrs. Johnson, I know who you are. And she said, young lady, you're going to watch history for the first time. Because today, all the black models on the catwalk will be wearing Fashion Fair Cosmetics for the very first time.
Wow. Big.
This is huge. This was a founder of Fashion Fair telling me why she did it. Fast forward to, coming to do Fashion Fair, for the time that I was there, it was partly to continue their entrepreneurial dream. I did the same thing when I went to Soft Sheen Hair Care. Because Soft Sheen Hair Care was, again, a Black-owned entrepreneurial business that was started in Chicago. But when I saw the founder of Soft Sheen, Mr. Ed Gardner, at the New York beauty show, stand up and tell a community that no one was going to put him out of business because he had tremendous competition from Revlon trying to take him out of business because they wanted the Black hair care market. He stood up and said, no one's going to take my business from me. I am going to protect it. I admired that so when I got a headhunter call after I had done my consulting business for a while to go work for Soft Sheen, I said yes, because I want to help that entrepreneurial legacy. This is one thing that I want people to understand. The entrepreneurial businesses that are in our community need people who have had corporate experience to take them to the next level. That is a great way to get into entrepreneurship. That is an Entrepreneurville lesson learned. You can help other entrepreneurs grow their businesses. You don't have to be the entrepreneur, but you can work in an entrepreneurial business and have just as much fun.
Wow, that's good stuff. Before we go any further, also want to welcome back Durham Skywriter. Welcome back, Dante. Well, a big shout out to life coach Ava Laura. Ava Laura, part of the great online platform Boot to Boom, which is coming up. Ava Laura, make sure you type in the chat window when it's coming back on. This is now. It's interesting you say that. Okay. Here's another great question, and I know Leon, you have some, but I'm gonna go right now. Okay. Boot to Boom back on September 27th at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you check it out with Ava Laura. Brian Lobick has a question. When do you know when it is time to move from 1,099 subcontractors to paid employees?
Well, again, you have to ask, what stage are you in your business? Okay, and what kind of business do you want? In today's economy, go back to your question about today's economy and technology, you can run a sizable business with contract employees and not have the overhead of a lot of staff. But on the other hand, if you really want to make sure that certain things are happening and you're not there yourself to run it, because again, sometimes you don't want to do everything yourself, you have to be willing to hire a team. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of business do I want? In today's economy with technology, you can have a virtual business, but in certain businesses, you do have to have somebody who is there every day with their hand in the business, running it, particularly if you as the entrepreneur, your skill set is more in the sales or the PR and you're not the operations person. You almost always have to have somebody who can do the inside job while you're doing the outside job. So you have to look at your business. What does your business need? And how much of it does it need? And what type of goals do you have in terms of growing your business? And if you're in a category where a lot of things happen virtually, like if you're in a web-based business or a online business, and there are tremendous businesses now that you can grow to sizable scale online. That's pretty much, a lot of that is 1099s and contract workers. But when you are in a manufacturing business, if you run a plant, you better be there. So it depends upon your business. I can't hear you. I've lost your sound.
Sorry about that. No, I'm just saying that I'm based here in Canada, so pardon me that I didn't know it was a 1099 tax designation. So please forgive me. I'm in Toronto, so I hope you guys will let me broadcast for another day in regards to that. And Brian responds, great advice. Fantastic. Ahmed, you had mentioned you want to come back on. Absolutely. Anyone else who wants to jump on, take advantage of it. I also want to welcome Natural Aromatherapy. Thank you so much for stopping by. If anyone that wants to jump in, your time is now. It says I've been notified. Okay, Ahmed, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull you in this way. Okay, so Ahmed should be with us in just, it's not letting you in. Okay, no problem. I'm just going to continue with the conversation pieces. Okay, hold on. Hi, it's Pam in the Bahamas. Thank you so much, Pam in the Bahamas. Thanks for stopping by. Do you have any questions or comments that you'd love to share with Amy? She is here to share. With the world of entrepreneurship, we've talked about some of the mountains. Mm-hmm. What have been some of the flowers? Because you mentioned many years ago you used to take the flowers and make perfume. What are some of the wonderful flowers you've had to experience in your journey of entrepreneurship?
Well, when you think of flowers, you think of the people who really you're able to grow, or who help you to grow as a flower. And I think that's where mentorship comes in. Both people who I've been able to mentor, and going back to the young lady who saw me in California, it gives me tremendous, tremendous joy to stand in front of other audiences, to tell my story, and to have a young lady or a young man come up to me and say, just because I heard you say you did it, I can do it. I'm watering their flower with my experience. And that to me means so much, because it just gives me tremendous joy, because I know I'm going to take my businesses as far as I can. But if I don't water someone else's flower, then our community won't keep going forward. And so I think mentorship is about watering somebody else's flower so that they can grow, because Lord knows somebody watered me. And I've had tremendous mentors over the course of my career who totally believed in me, saw things in me that I didn't know I had, forced me to grow. And I've been very, very fortunate. I've worked for some of the most legendary entrepreneurs, African-American entrepreneurs in the country. Tom Burrell was another one. I worked for Tom Burrell, working at Burrell Communications. And after helping him to integrate his companies, he had 3 companies at the time: Burrell Advertising, Burrell Promotions, Burrell Public Relations. He said, I want to have one company, an integrated marketing. I had to write a proposal to him for the job of Senior Vice President of Integrated Marketing, present it to his board of directors as to how I thought the company could be integrated, do all the new collaterals, do all this, the presentations that we were going to do. And then I thought I was going to hand it over to somebody else to sell it. Tom said, oh no, you're pretty good. You sell it. I'm like, what? I've not sold a company. I've never done that before. He said, I think you can do it. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, all of a sudden I'm heading up, doing business development. And I brought in, but I sold them on the strategic reason why to advertise to African Americans before you actually bought the ads. Because at that time, the census had come out with 25%, this is in the 1990s, where 25% of this country was going to be people of color. Big corporations did not understand that. So I sold them on the strategy of why they needed to go into multicultural marketing. And I sold consulting services. And then they were able to take that and then go into buying advertising. And Tom said, well, you brought in more new business in 1 year than in our whole 25-year history at that time. I was like, really? And I'm like, well, you know what? This is good. Now I want to start my own consulting firm. And he was like, well, why don't you just do it as a division of Burrell? And I'm like, no, Tom, I was honest with you when I interviewed. I said, I want to be an entrepreneur. And he said, well, great. I understand and honor that. So we worked it out because I didn't want to leave him high and dry. And this is the other thing about entrepreneurship. If you're in corporate America and you think you want to go out on your own, do not just leave your employer high and dry. Manage your way out, because you never know, that relationship may be coming back at you in a way you couldn't fathom at the beginning. Tom said, because of the way you did it, I will not only let you stay in Michigan Avenue space for 6 months, I will support your staff by paying for someone to be your administrative person, and I'm going to be your first customer, your first client for the Hilliard Group, strategic marketing, multicultural marketing. And that's how we got started.
Great
but it's about
story.
It's about flowering, just as you said. He flowered me. He totally flowered me.
Okay, Ahmed is back in because he had a question in the chat, but I'm glad he's here to ask it live, and hopefully a natural aromatherapy lady is going to join in too. But Ahmed, didn't ask your question.
What we did is we created an African-American investment fund to purchase these toxic assets. We're always in the process of raising capital. And I know that you have, you've kind of touched on some things during your entire conversation, but could you kind of wrap it up and point out some specific points that you've encountered in raising capital for your investments and your projects?
Well, I think the capital raising process is one that is ongoing all the time. I remember, my kids have been in the business, and I remember my son was working for me one summer, and I had him count up the number of capital raising business proposals I had done over the course of time. And after he got to like 175 at the time, he's like, Mom, I think I've counted enough. You have to be willing to get your business at a point where you can tell the story to people who can fund it. And you don't know where they're going to come from. It's always been surprising to me, people who are interested in your story enough to fund your business. So number one, know your numbers and know your story and be able to tell it very quickly. I got our first investor by going to a Black Enterprise conference, telling our story, and afterward over coffee after the panel was over, telling my story again. And this person said, I'm going to invest in your business. So you've got to be willing to do that. You sometimes have to go to the more traditional ways. I've pitched to venture capitalists. I've pitched to all kind of private equity people. I've pitched to banks, and I finally got a bank loan, again, through the relationships of keeping it going. So you have to really look at what kind of capital do you need? Who has that kind of capital? What are you willing to give up for that capital? Do you want debt? Do you want equity? Do you want debt that converts to equity? And all of these things you have to study. And so it's not about just having a great idea and just saying, somebody fund me. Be very specific about knowing what you want to ask for and what you're willing to give up for. And what is the return on investment going to be for your investor? And sometimes with angel investing, they know they may not get their money back, and they have to be okay with that. And you have to make sure that they're okay with that. But then there are different categories of people who will then, at certain points in your journey, say, I'm willing to give you a loan right now, or even a gift right now. So it depends upon what you're looking for. In your business, where you are in a business that is buying toxic assets, and you're starting an African-American fund, that's at a whole different genre from where I am. But would you say, Ahmed, that there are certain tenets that I have just mentioned that still make sense even for you?
Absolutely. I mean, spot on. I mean, the model, it doesn't even really matter. Like what you said is spot on.
Well, see, that's the whole thing. People think that there's this magic to it, but there are books on it. And this is the other thing I tell people in terms of flowering and watering their flowers. If they walk up to me, or I get phone calls saying, how do I start a food business? Or how do I become an entrepreneur? I said, well, have you done your homework? Have you researched it? Because again, what we have now that I didn't have back then, there was no Google. Okay, but you can Google just about anything and learn in a nanosecond what it takes to go for the capital that you need to start the business that you're interested in. But if you're not willing to even do that level of homework, do not expect an entrepreneur like me or like Ahmed to tell you everything in a conversation when we're saying, hello, how are you?
Right.
We can't do that. You've got to take the responsibility to figure it out too.
Yeah, you got to do some of the preliminary work.
Exactly.
One other question I had that you mentioned earlier, how your dad supported your mom. My wife and I are in several businesses together. How can I be more effective as a husband supporting my wife? Because we think differently, and sometimes I'm the hardcore go-getter, but that can be overwhelming for her at times. So how can I best support my wife and what she's doing?
That is a beautiful question, for you to even come with that as your goal. I think that this is a lesson that's learned, and this is truly a lesson learned in the land of Oz, that everybody has strengths, okay? And what your strength is in terms of perhaps the strategic, the hardcore, the go-getter, her strengths may balance that by finding the different softer areas of a business that need attention as well. But the bottom line is you got to respect both. There's no one way to do anything. And there's no, your way is a highway or her way is a highway. It's like, hey, highways usually have more than one lane. So what is going to be the lane that I can help you with to drive faster on? What is the lane that you can help me with to drive faster on? But we still want to get down that yellow brick road together. It's about respecting each other's skills It's respecting each other's talents and knowing when it's time to balance it and step back and say, okay, you can lead because that's your area. That's where you're best. And I'll sit back and let you lead and respect you for that.
Yeah. Wonderful. Dr. Vibe, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. No problem. Excellent question. And we got Dr. Will Moreland. Hi, Dr. Will. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, my friend?
I am blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. I thought you were going to leave. I saw you still there, so I called you to come on in. So what question do you have for Amy?
I really don't have a question. I just wanted to give a shout out, man. This is a fantastic conversation tonight. This is my first time on Fire Talk, and I met Amy several years ago at a Black Enterprise conference, and I just want to say it's great to see you still doing amazing work. And so I just wanted to pop in. I see my client calling in on Skype now, so I just want to pop in and say hello. I definitely will come check you back out later on.
Thank you so much.
No problem. You stopping by. Thanks for taking the time.
And if you want to get in touch with me, please go to amyshilliard.com. Join our mailing list so we can stay in touch, because I'm going to be doing much more with that now. I've had to really look at some things this summer, and I was busy. My mom, who you mentioned before, she's 92 now. And so again, you've got to really prioritize what you do with your time. And so I've been spending a lot of time with her this year. She, is suffering with Alzheimer's and dementia, which is a whole other journey. But her wisdom is still intact. And so, I've been spending time with her, but I'm really going back to, as we get into the fall, becoming much more active with my mailing list and my website. So folks can go to amyshilliard.com, sign up, and join our mailing list so that we can stay in touch and share more thoughts.
Wonderful.
And I'd like to thank Brian. He's put the link in the side there. So all people have to do is click on that, join up the mailing list, etc. What sort of Amy, what questions, what are the frequent questions you're getting from entrepreneurs these days? What are the common questions?
The common questions are, I want to become an entrepreneur and I don't know where to start. I'm afraid to leave my job. How did you handle the risk? And I don't know what I want to do, but I know I want to do something on my own. Those are the kind of questions that I get a lot. And this is why, I go back to Tap Into Your Juice, my first book, which I was so blessed that Michelle Obama endorsed back in 2005 when we first printed it. Because through that book, you really start asking yourself some questions, which are things like, what is your purpose? Understanding your purpose. All the P's, I have 10 P's in Tap Into Your Juice, and one of them is finding your purpose and believing you have one. That can help you answer the questions that I just asked, that people ask me a lot of. What do you really want to do? And how do you really want to do it? What are you doing to get prepared to find out what it is that you want to do? Do you have patience in order to take the time to do the work? Are you willing to be persistent when things don't go the way you want? Are you willing to seek positivity when there's nothing but negativity around you? Are you still passionate about what it is that you know you need to do? All these questions can help you to find out, those answers when you're trying to think about entrepreneurship, because you really do have to do a lot of self-evaluation, a lot of family evaluation, because it's not just you, it's your family. Many times it was my family. As I said, I wasn't going to sell the house if my kids said no. So you have to, it was very, very true. And so you really have to do that kind of introspective thinking before you can just answer those questions of, I want to jump into being an entrepreneur, because a lot of people just hate their jobs. Oh my God, I hate my job. I'm walking in there and quitting tomorrow. And then they look at them and go, oh my God, I need to go back there and beg for my job back, because it's hard out here on your own. And so, because they didn't do the self-evaluation. Personally, I can handle a lot of risk. Everybody can't. So you have to know that about yourself. And then there becomes a point in time where you don't want to handle as much risk as you used to. Know that about yourself. So, the questions that I mentioned before really require people to just take a look at what it is that you want, take a look at your objectives, but then stay focused and disciplined and knowing strategically what it is you want and prioritize what it is you want. And this is something that's not always easy for me because I have a lot of different ideas. I have a lot of things that I love to do. I'm a creative person. So for me, when people say, well, why did you become an entrepreneur? It's because I like creating things. But in order to stay an entrepreneur, I have to become and stay disciplined in getting those things done. And that part was difficult for me. It's still a challenge for me because I'd rather be out creatively thinking instead of staying disciplined and at that computer knocking down the stuff that I need to knock down. But you got to do it. Long answer, but those are some of the questions and my answers.
No, that's not an answer. That's
right.
an epic
Ms.
share.
Hilliard, I'd like to ask you a different question that you may not get often. What could someone like myself do to help you further your cause and your ventures?
Oh, thank you, Ahmad. Thank you so much. Really, it's sharing the word about my ebook, Tap Into Your Juice Now, because that is available. I enjoy speaking. If you have things that people need speakers for, I enjoy speaking very much. And, just continuing the dialogue as you have been and telling your story, because when you tell your story, it helps other people who are interested in entrepreneurship to see a totally different business from mine, but still that can show other people what they can do. I think that would be helpful. And then I would just say, stay in touch so that I can help you because you may need some pound cake someday.
Oh,
I love pound cake.
I have a question, Amy, and I want to look on the sunny side of Oz. Tell us all about a moment that Michelle Obama was endorsing your book.
Wow. That was something that, if you go to comfortcake.com, you might see it on there, but you'll see it on my Facebook pages. I met the Obamas when I first came to Chicago, and President Obama wasn't even in politics when I met them. I would see him at Walgreens buying, 409 to clean whatever. And so I met Michelle actually because I was new in town. I met a mutual friend. She said, come to a baby shower that I'm going to. And I'm like, okay. It was Malia's baby shower. It was,
wow.
Yeah. So, and, Michelle Obama, meeting her, she's pregnant, she's going to have her first child, and that's how we met. But I would see her in the community because she was the VP of Community Affairs for the University of Chicago. Another lesson learned. Get involved with the community and volunteer. I was always volunteering. I was always speaking for different things or sharing thoughts. I was on nonprofit boards, and so I see her all the time. And we just started to talk, and I said, this is when Barack Obama was starting to run for the Senate, and I went to the first forum that he had when he declared he was going to run for the Senate. Nobody believed him, because he had just lost this huge race to Bobby Rush. He really lost. And so when he said he's going to run for Senate, people didn't believe him. So there were like, 10 of us in the room. I was one of those 10. And she remembered that. So when I told her she always asks, how gracious she is. I said, I'm going to write this book and I would love for you to think about endorsing it because it's about many of the things that we share in terms of how to be authentic in life. And so she said, I'll do it. Now, after she said she would do it, they were running a campaign. So it was very hard to pin her down to get it. And so I had to just be very patient. Having patience is a key piece. So I would email her and I'd say, how's it coming? With the quote that you need, and she would be busy. And I would just keep going. How's it coming? Can I get the quote? And I finally got it. And this was back in 2005. Fast forward to my fourth printing of the book, and Mr. Obama was running for the presidency. Now, I stayed involved with his campaign. I helped raise money for him, so I would see him, at different things. I would see her at different things. I was at a fundraiser in Washington, D.C., and we were going for the next printing of the book. And I was concerned. I was like, oh my goodness, he's going to be running for the presidency. I don't know if I can still keep this endorsement. And I went to her and I said, I'm getting ready to get the book done again. And I wanted to know how you felt about the endorsement. She said, Amy, that endorsement is yours for life.
Wow.
And I was like,
wow,
amazed, just amazed. And that's about bringing your authentic self to it. I was not trying to, do stargazing or anything like that. I just thought she was a wonderful person, still do. She is an amazing woman. I think the president is an amazing man. They're so down to earth. And, they're very much, I saw President Obama when he spoke at Howard recently. I'm on the Howard University Board of Trustees. I cannot tell you how exciting it was to see him speak at my alma mater. And I've seen Michelle Obama speak at my alma mater. And so for her to say that, and for her, when I saw her like 2 years ago at Howard, and she runs up to me and hugs me and, how's that doing? How's that cake business doing? How's the book doing? I'm like, I can't even believe you even think about stuff like that. It means the world to me. It just means the world to me. It's something that, I will always cherish. I have a picture of myself and Michelle when Barack Obama was sworn into the Senate. After I went to the swearing in, and she's put her arm around me, she's hugging me. I'm just glowing because she had just whispered in my ear. She said, Amy, you were in the room when nobody believed.
wow.
This is after he's been sworn in, right after he's been sworn in. That's the kind of person she is. So I'm blessed to know her. Blessed.
I really appreciate you sharing the story because I can see how emotional they are for you.
Oh, absolutely. Seriously. They're people that who are now, have been for the last 8 years the most powerful people on the planet. Hello? It's not like I can come up and say, can we go play some bid whist or anything? But it's okay. I feel blessed that I've been able to be touched that way by them. Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Ahmed, any more conversation pieces? Because we have taken up so much of Ms. Hilliard's time. I'm going to have a big ask of her before we leave the conversation tonight. But do you have any more questions or comments? Any of the audience have any questions about entrepreneurship?
I'm just at our website looking at the cakes, and I signed up for the email list, so I just searched you on social media. So I'm just trying to do everything that I can to stay in contact and again support you and do whatever I can.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And be sure you join my email list at amyshilliard.com, because I'm working on the Comfort Cake site in terms of, helping to rejigger that list so that everything can be now part of one. So thank you, Ahmed. I really appreciate that. And, this whole thing about entrepreneurs, there's one aspect of it that I want to share. I'm one of 4 sisters. I have 3 sisters and 4 daughters. All 4 of us are entrepreneurs.
Wow.
Yes.
Impressive.
And that is,
actually,
go ahead.
I'm going to go back because Leon had 1 or 2 conversation pieces. And we got one more. We'll get one more answering from you before we go. Do you have any tips in regards to market testing? Because obviously with your product, you had to do some testing.
Absolutely. And I think it's very important to do the testing. I did testing with focus groups where I hired a friend who was, and this is again relationships. This is a friend who is one of the foremost market researchers and focus group moderators in the country, who I hired when I was at Pillsbury. When I started Comfort Cake, she said, I'll help you with Comfort Cake and do a focus group. We'll work out a deal. So I did a focus group where they tested Comfort Cake against someone else's grandmother's cake and Sara Lee, and I beat them hands down. But because this market researcher had such a great reputation, that was standard research that I could say in focus group testing, Comfort Cake beat Sara Lee and somebody else's grandmama's cake. We are good, okay? Now, the other thing about market research that I used is what I call observational research. It's really how I started the business, because I was cooking for my family Thanksgiving family reunion. I cooked for 20 years for 40 people on Thanksgiving. I've handed over the spoon to my daughter, who's now the chief food officer. I'm no longer the CFO because that's a lot of work. But every year, for 40 people from across the country, they wouldn't let me even get to the turkey. They said, just make cake. That was me observing and doing market research. If all these people from all parts of the country really like this cake, then maybe there's a business here. So you can do standard research, but don't underestimate the power of observational research too. Watch what's going around you in your environment. That's where you see trends happening before they grow, and you can capitalize on those.
Wonderful. Those are final words from Amy. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us this evening. I have a big ask.
Yes.
In your crazy busy schedule, will you have time to come back on in a few months?
Yes, of course I will. I mean, let's make that happen, because I do want to continue to share. I want to tell more about my sisters, because that is something that's very near and dear to my heart. My sister, Gloria Mayfield Banks, anybody in Mary Kay knows Gloria. She's the #1 person in all of Mary Kay. She's my sister. Oh. We are the only 2 African-American sisters to have ever graduated from the Harvard Business School in its entire history. Oh. My sister, Wendy, has a Wendy Hilliard Foundation. She was the first rhythmic gymnast to ever compete internationally, the first African-American rhythmic gymnast. And my other sister, older sister, Pam Hilliard Owens, has a global writing business. So that's a whole nother story that I'd be happy to share next time. That's all about.
Yeah, we got to get you. We got to get you back, because we just got the thumbnail tonight.
We want all of that. We want all of
that. Exactly. That is fantastic. Well, Amy, thank you so much.
You're very
really bottom of my heart, and I think everyone who's jumped on here tonight, most of the people that are on here right now have been here for the full run. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And thanks Quirk Place, thanks Leon, thanks Ahmed, thanks Brian, Ava, Laura, thank you Durham Skyrider, thank you Dr. Will. I can't remember everybody, and I'm not trying to forget you, but I can't remember because I'm multitasking here. So, and also a very big thanks to Pepper Miller.
Absolutely. Pepper Miller is my girl. She was the one who introduced us. So thanks, Pep. You were absolutely right. This has been tremendous, and I thank you so much.
Dr. Bob, hook me up with Pepper.
I'm trying, brother. Pepper is like, it's funny. Pepper gets you to connect with people. You can get a hold of them easy. Getting a hold of Pepper, it's not that easy.
No, I know that, but that's my girl.
We're going to work on it, so no problem, but it's all good. It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of epic conversations. If you want to touch base with me, I will put my contact information on the side via Twitter, via email. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed and highly favored, a magnet for miracles and a solution for someone's problem. The next scheduled conversation that I have on Fire Talk is next Tuesday, our weekly manhood show. And we have a gentleman named Connor. I'll give you his name right now. Connor Beaton, of an organization called Man Talks, which is based out of Vancouver, Canada. It's an organization dedicated to men. He's going to be coming on the conversation and saying hello, talking about the organization, and talking about manhood from a Canadian male perspective.
Okay.
So he's going to be on next. Between now and then, I'll be doing an interview of someone who is in charge of the African film programming to the Toronto International Film Festival, which is starting in a few days. Also, I'm doing a pre-recorded conversation with a gentleman who's in charge of digital news product at Global News, which is one of the top 3 news networks in all of Canada. He is a mentor of mine. And also I'm going to put an ask in for Amy to become a mentor of mine also.
All right.
So
happy to.
As always, I'd like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles and you're a solution for someone's problem. Amy, I will contact you in the next few days in regards to when this is up, but I'll contact you very soon into continuing the conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a great time and I solely appreciate it.
It is an honor, and anything that we can do to help you, 2 words, just ask.
Thank you so much. I certainly will. Take care.
And I'll leave with this last quote. Don't aim for perfection, aim for progress.
Absolutely. That's one of my best thoughts as well. I totally agree.
There you go. I'm on line with Amy, so this is a good way to say, God bless, peace be well, and keep the faith. Good night.
Good night.